Among the last few years, we have seen the rise and dominance of various film genres. Superhero flicks, biopics, unwanted reboots, unwanted sequels, movies made for the sole purpose of keeping Johnny Depp in work. But trends come and go. Throughout the 70s and 80s, it was sci-fi, late 90s and early noughties, it was romantic comedies, and in recent years, it's reboots and sequels. And yet one genre has been persistent: teen movies. It's no secret that films appealing to and written for the teenage demographic is the key for any studio wanting to make big bucks, but besides this, these films have shaped and defined generations, becoming significant pop culture symbols and stepping stones for movies to come. The 2010s had Perks of Being a Wallflower and Edge of 17, the 2000s had Mean Girls, the 90s had 10 Things I Hate About You and Clueless, and the 80s had The Godfather of teen movies, the topic of today's video, and possibly the best teen movie of all time. The Breakfast Club caters to a large demographic, or rather, larger demographic than teen movies nowadays. The film's group of characters consisting of the jock, the rebel, the princess, the brain, and the basket case goes beyond stereotypes. Unlike modern teen movies, The Breakfast Club didn't concentrate on one main character and treat other cliques as stereotypes, a mere reflection of what others saw. It took these people, put them alone and under a microscope, and dedicated time to analyzing each person both as an individual and collectively as a group. But even though they're all seen as individuals, they're not given the same amount of screen time and importance. What do you notice about this picture? Bender is the center of attention, and all the characters are turned towards him, except for Brian, who's looking away as if he's in his own world, an outsider to this group. My point is further proven in this shot where Brian is leaving alone. Claire kisses Bender, Andy kisses Allison, and Brian gets into his dad's car. Throughout the movie, Brian is heavily taunted. We can all agree that everyone was mocked by Bender, but they all retorted in some way or another, while Brian doesn't. He just tries to play it off, and when Bender mocks his family without having any knowledge of his actual situation, he's visibly upset. Brian isn't given a love interest either, and he's arguably the only one who doesn't get a happy ending. He's also the most aware and tragic character of all. When he asks,
"What is going to happen to us on Monday?"
he naively believes that he'll still remain friends with all the others, even calling them his friends, even though they only spent one afternoon together. When Claire and Andy admit that things won't be the same, Brian calls them out and heartbreakingly tells them that he wouldn't do that to them, which leaves me to believe that maybe Brian already knew the answer to his question.
I just want to tell each of you that I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't, and I will not. Because I think that's real shitty. You're so conceited, Clint. You're so conceited. You're so, full of yourself.
While we're watching the movie, I noticed something. Who gets the most amount of screen time? Claire, Andy, and Bender. They're the ones with the most dialogue and significant interactions. But why are Allison and Brian not important? Well, that's simple. Claire, Andy, and Bender are popular. And like in high school, the popular kids are given the most attention. To further prove my point, let's examine Brian and Allison. When the group discusses why they're in detention, Brian admits to attempting suicide with a flare gun, so it's safe to say he's suicidal. We also learn he did this because he got an F, and judging by his mother's license plate and what she says in the beginning of the movie, he's under an enormous amount of pressure and possibly suffers from a form of anxiety and possible depression.
I don't understand what? You think I don't understand pressure, Claire? Well, fuck you! Fuck you!
He's also extremely lonely. Logically, Brian doesn't have any friends. He's in a lot of clubs, he doesn't mention any when he talks to the others, and he's led to believe he'll still remain friends with people he's only spent one afternoon with. Allison also suffers at the hands of her parents, seeing as she's neglected by them, which could explain her mental state and possibility of an existing mental disorder. Just like Brian, Allison doesn't have friends. She's in detention because she has nothing better to do, and openly admits to having none in group therapy. Arguably, they're the characters that have it worse, and yet they're hardly given as much importance as the other three, just like in high school. Hell, it even goes as far as solving Allison's problem by making her pretty. John Hughes, whether intentionally or not, painted an accurate picture of the dynamics of high school, not just in the 80s where people like Brian and Allison weren't taken seriously and represent a bigger problem, but also for future generations. But why? Why is it so accurate and still relevant, and why can't modern teen movies hold a candle to The Breakfast Club? Simply put, modern movies appeal to the masses. They try to seem relevant, hop on trends, and compress real life into these big dramas. Not only that, but they unintentionally alienate their audience when creating plots written only to appeal to a small amount of people. Sure, everyone has fallouts with their friends or felt like an outcast or had their heart broken, but the problem is that these things aren't portrayed accurately, but instead exploited and molded into some big plot device for conflict and to keep the movie going. One of the prime examples is the controversial show 13 Reasons Why, that in my opinion distorts and manipulates its audience instead of succeeding to pass on a message. It trades an important opportunity for a tone-deaf, cash-grabbing drama that disguises itself as some entertainment-changing hero. In recent times, teen movies seem to have lost the ability to transmit their message and instead replace it with overdramatic storytelling and lines that would look pretty on a Tumblr dashboard, which in turn makes it seem disingenuous and unrelatable. The Breakfast Club excels in all aspects, storytelling and creating a narrative that directly relates to its audience, making it a timeless piece of cinema and arguably the best teen movie. Thanks for watching.
Won't you come see about me? I'll be alone, dancing, you know it, baby. Tell me your troubles and doubts, giving me